Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lovecraft eZine podcast. This is February the 3rd, 2019. And if you're watching us live, that means you're not watching the Super Bowl. So, good thing we record this for future listeners. Today, we don't really have a guest. We didn't even know if we were going to have a show. But then Pete talked to me about Charles here, who's publishing, his press is publishing a collection of Pete's coming up, later this year, I believe?
Yeah, it's going to be in the summer.
Okay. And so I thought we could talk a few minutes about that, and then I've got some topics lined up and whatever else you guys want to talk about. We'll do introductions, and then we'll do that. Hey, this always makes me think of that How I Met Your Mother episode where they can't watch the Super Bowl live, and so they record it, Devo it, whatever, and they're going to watch it the next day, and they're trying to keep from getting information about the Super Bowl for like 24 hours. Hilarious episode. Maybe I'm the only How I Met Your Mother fan here. I don't know. So anyway, let's do introductions. Let's start with Ben and work our way over.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm here so Kelly Young doesn't have to be.
Don't make excuses for him.
We'll get back to you, Charles. Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter. I do stuff sometimes.
I introduced you last week, just so you know, since you were late. So, Pete.
I'm Pete Rawlick, author, book dealer, book scout, and purveyor of fine filth.
You forgot serial killer.
Try not to tell people that. Jeez.
Oh, sorry. Rick.
Rick Lay, writer.
And Heather.
Heather Landry, artist. Got a bunch of creepy art over at sandpaperdaisy.com.
Sandpaperdaisy.com. Which brings up a good point. Just about everybody here, I don't think you, Ben, although you contribute in many other ways, just about everybody here has something creative that they contribute. Pete's a writer. You look him up on Amazon. Rick's a writer. Look him up on Amazon. Matt's edited several books. Heather's an artist. Sandpaperdaisy.com. And last but not least, I'm very happy to have Ben on the show. You contribute so much to the conversation, Ben. So I'm glad you're here.
Someone has to keep everyone else in line. That's the real problem.
Absolutely. All right, so Charles, why don't you take a second and introduce yourself and your
Yeah, absolutely. Name is Charles Dunphy. I'm the editor-in-chief and founder of Gehenna and Hinnom Books. We're a publisher of weird fiction and cosmic horror, and we hope to one day become one of the top publishers in those respective genres.
All right, and you're publishing a collection of Pete's coming up.
Yes, Strange Company and Others. It's going to be Pete's debut collection. It's going to have a plethora of different stories, all kinds of different themes. There's going to be what I like about the collection is that Pete's really been known for his knowledge and his work in the Lovecraftian field, but this collection, honestly, I think is going to showcase his veteran talent a lot more. It's going to spread out and cover all kinds of different genres, all kinds of different characters, and I think it'll be the perfect jumping point for people that haven't read his work before, and it'll be a great way for people that have read his work to kind of see just how wide the variety of his talents are. And the collection is due out this summer. We're thinking June or July. I don't think that we've had an exact date, but it's definitely going to be before the Necronomicon.
Print and Kindle?
Yes, we're gonna do hardcover, paperback and Kindle.
Now, I've been friends with Pete for years, and then you just said debut collection, and I thought, is that right? Yeah, is that right, Pete? I mean, it's just been novels up to this point, right? And you've had stories in anthologies, of course, and magazines.
Some people might argue about the Peasley Papers, but the Peasley Papers to me I called it a chronicle because it's really a longer piece of, it's a bunch of short pieces that create an overarching whole.
Right.
This doesn't do that, and it's kind of different. It's a collection of short stories that I'm really proud of, some of which have not seen the light of day in ages. But yeah, it's the first collection.
Are there some originals, some reprints, all reprints, all originals?
We have mixed it up. There's a bunch of reprints, but then there are some things that no one else has seen. And I think we're even going to do an exclusive piece for the hardcover, the limited edition hardcover. So there's some pieces that some people have never seen, and then there'll be some pieces that only people who get the hardcover will see.
Well, why don't one of you guys tell me about the hardcover?
Okay. Well, the hardcover is going to be, we have a Kickstarter exclusive, but we're also going to have, like a mass market one. We have the art is going to be done by Scott Wheelock, who's working on it right now. He's a very talented painter. He kind of does a lot of his stuff in like a charcoal style. And, we were really excited to kind of get him on board because I know that Pete wanted something kind of in that same, I wouldn't say it's kind of abstract, but just more of like grainy, like dark horror look, just more classical painting look. And we're going to have the exclusive that's going to be Kickstarter, only, and that's going to be a very limited print run. The primary difference between that one and the one that's going to be available on Amazon and everything else is just that, we're going to include some different stuff on the interior. The cover is probably going to be like a different shade, a different hue. There's going to be a few little things that are different about it. It'll probably say Kickstarter exclusive on the inside. And of course, it'll have acknowledgments and, a note to whoever the backers were. And we're going to have them signed and inscribed.
Well, let me stop you right there because you said Kickstarter exclusive several times. Is that the one that's currently running, or are you going to do a Kickstarter just for this book?
Oh, that's the one that's currently running. It's one of the tiers that we're offering as a reward.
Okay, just FYI for anybody watching or listening later, even live, I've already linked to the Kickstarter in the show notes. So, and you guys are doing great. You're definitely gonna hit your mark, but there's some great later rewards if stretch goals. That's the phrase I was looking for. There's some stretch goals that you guys would like to reach, and it'll enable you to get more books out, I think. So it's kind of a statistical thing that I did a lot of research going in this Kickstarter. Just about any indie publisher I could find, I did a lot of research. And shout out to Robert S. Wilson that did Ashes and Entropy. He was an enormous help. So is Joe Meinhardt over at Crystal Lake, and Dan Coxon with the Shadow Booth. I just kind of, sent a lot of emails out. But statistically, they say that you should start with like a very minimum goal, because if you start with like a very minimum goal, you're going to be more likely statistically to succeed. So like the goal that we started with was $3,000, but the end stretch goal, what we are hoping desperately to get to is, the 10K goal. Because if we do that, then we can, pay professional rates for the magazine, for the chapbooks, for the novelettes. And that's kind of what the overall emphasis is I really, really want it to be a professional paying market. That's been my goal since the start. And I just think that there aren't enough, Just as an aside, you got great advice, in my opinion. when I did a Kickstarter for Autumn Cthulhu several years back, I asked for the minimum that would pay for everything. You know, writers at professional rates, and the cover and everything else that I needed, to make a long story short. And it funded, I don't remember, it was like within a day or two. And when you have a Kickstarter that funds quickly, like within a week, within a few days, you know, like your Kickstarter's been out, what, a day or so, and it's more than 2/3 funded. That creates this momentum and this sense of success. You know, people look at it and they think, oh, this, you know, this must be a good quality product. A lot of other people are buying into it, you know, are investing in it. So yeah, I think you got great advice. And I think the other piece of advice that a lot of Kickstarters don't think of or ignore is to build in advertising money. It seems like they build in everything but unless you got a huge following, you have to build in advertising money too.
Yep.
Whether you're advertising on Facebook or wherever you're going to advertise. So.
Yeah, we have a little breakdown of the budget on the Kickstarter, and that was like I think it was one of our 3 brackets that we kind of had for the primary, you know, where the funds were going. The first was like payments for the authors, and I think the second was marketing, and the third, if I remember correctly, was for like illustrations and things like that. Because, you know, like that's kind of like where my background originated in, was marketing. You know, my brother got his MBA and everything, and he's kind of like, you know, the wizard behind the curtains with a lot of this stuff. But I've learned a lot from him in the past several years. And, you know, as a team, we kind of like work together on these kind of things. So marketing these books, you know, Pete's collection, and then we have also Whiskey and Other Unusual Ghosts by S.L. Edwards on the tab as well. I want to make sure that for both of them that this is the most successful that it can be. That's where my primary concern is, you know. So I really emphasize the kind of, you know, I definitely want to market this and have the funds to be able to run a lot of ads and, you know, book promotions and things like that, just because, you know, my goal is to make it what they envisioned. That's the only goal. It's the only one it's ever been. You know?
So Pete, why don't you tell us how many stories in the collection and what kind of, I mean, we're talking Lovecraftian fiction, weird fiction, straight up horror.
Oh, how many stories? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, shit. Think about 18 to 20 stories.
Okay.
And it's divided up into, we worked hard on this together. We divided the collection up into 3 categories. And we, for lack of a better term, there's a section of mainstream mythos stories, things that I would consider my contributions to the main mythos. Follow that is other horrors. It sort of encompasses stories that didn't fit into the mythos that I've written for a variety of venues. There's a Victorian superhero story with some very dubious characters to claim that they're heroes. There's a Frankenstein story. There's a couple Florida stories that don't fit into the mythos that, yeah, if I stretched it hard, they could. There's actually a very personal story in there. The Things She Left Behind is an autobiographical piece that is 95% true, and you'll have to figure out what the other 5% isn't. And then there's the third section is alternate mythos, the stories that I wrote for that have mythos influences, but aren't strictly mythos.
More cosmic horror, you're saying?
More along the lines of, for example, there's one of the stories is Stuart Bear, De-Animator. So it's still a mythos story, but instead of Herbert West Reanimator, it flips the whole process, and it's set in a kind of steampunk universe where the mythos took over.
Well, you know, we like to kid on this show, but there's a lot of people that listen to this show and watch this show that are Pete Rollick fans. So
some people even on this show are Pete Rollick fans.
Well, I don't know, maybe one or two. You know, you figure out who it is. But yeah, Pete's got a lot of fans, and so this is his first collection. And you know, it's like I said, that's something I hadn't really realized, because you write so much and you write so many short stories. For some reason, in the back of my mind, I never thought about it, but if I was asked, I would have said, yeah, I'm sure he's got a collection out there somewhere. So
yeah, no, I don't. And the funny thing is, you know, you always ask people, is like, what is your idea of success?
Mm-hmm.
And when you asked me that years ago, I said that I thought, why am I locked on Charles all of a sudden? I thought that being published in like Arkham House would have been my definition of success.
Right.
And the funny thing is, like, two of the first stories that I ever published were in a collection by Fettigam and Bremer, a hardcover anthology. And, you know, so right off the bat, I thought I had a great deal of success because I sort of hit my goal. Fettigam and Bremer was the natural successor to Arkham House.
Very nice quality books.
Yeah. So that made me feel really good about myself. And, you know, since then I've published a lot of stuff, and I've just focused on the writing. And it's rare that I sit back and think about, well, how do we put all this stuff together? And in a moment of weakness, like a year ago, I popped it out on Facebook, and it's like, maybe I should do a collection, because I've been pressured by a bunch of people saying, hey, when are you going to do a collection? And it was just
don't give in to peer pressure, Pete.
Yeah, don't give in to the peer pressure. But it was just after Charles had published one of my short stories, and he was like, hey, you serious about this? And I'm like, yeah, let's talk. And, you know, we went back and forth, and he's like, you know, he's trying to sell me. And I was like, dude, you don't have to sell me. I'm perfectly happy with working with small press people. You know, there's a lot more control that you have with a small press. Yeah. And you can have this sort of not intimate conversation, but in many ways it is an intimate conversation with your publisher, and you're not just railroaded a graphics design and a layout design and an artist. You get to work and talk to people. And, you know, when the artist sat down and emailed me the other day, and we spent a good 8 hours talking back and forth about what we wanted to see and what things we liked and what things we didn't like and what was doable. You know, I've never had that opportunity before, you know, with a larger press. So really happy with the process. And one of the reasons I still like to do small press stuff.
So your definition, what I'm getting from this is that your definition of success was not being on this show.
No, yeah, this show is perfect. This is exactly what I did. But you know, here's the next step with that is that
was a step down, right?
Gehenna and Hymnal, the magazine, the publisher Charles, is positioning themselves with some very high quality work to be another market in the very near future, a serious professional market. And, you know, I've seen what they've done already, and, you know, I'm willing to not only invest with them by buying the magazine and submitting my stories, but also to sit down and do this project with them.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. It's great to have another small press publisher out there, because as we know, a lot of them go by the wayside. It's tough running a small press.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have no idea what it takes to, to do this stuff. Charles is talking about having his brother with an MBA and figuring out how to market all this, that, and other stuff. And it's something that really people get involved in and stuff, and they're like, oh, I had no idea I should have budgeted for that.
Yeah, exactly. Rick.
Yeah, the reason why we all thought he had a collection is that he would cunningly write novels as individual short stories.
Yes, that is my secret thing that I do. So I grew up reading Asimov and Analog and fantasy book and magazine fantasy and science fiction, and they would serialize novels, right? You would get a novel, but it wasn't. You get a story, like you would get a George R.R. Martin story, particularly a Haviland Tough story is what I'm thinking about, and then a year would go by and there would be another one. And then a year would go by and there would be another one. And then the next thing you know, they're like, oh, here's a novel from Tor. And it's the 6 stories that I read in the magazines. And he's just added some words and he arced them together. It's like, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles.
The same way. Yeah.
Didn't Frank Herbert publish the first parts of Dune separately in a magazine? Analog, I believe.
Yeah. It was. I think it was in 3 parts, but yeah.
Yeah, and much shorter, abridged.
Yeah.
Fritz Leiber's Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stuff, Tanith Lee's Knight's Master and Death's Master and stuff like that. Those are like that. Those are great too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like, so that's what I grew up with, and that's what I like to do. And I read Brian Lumley, and you realize that he's done the same thing. You see all these little stories, and then he suddenly puts them together, and there's a novel. I was like, oh, really? Okay.
I thought Lumley was a little sneakier about it. It's sort of like he needs to fill out the book, so he'll just make a short story. He wrote a flashback.
Yeah. The other thing is that in those days, it wasn't as easy to find out where all this stuff was originally printed. It's not like today where we can just go to International Science Fiction Database and find out, oh, all this stuff was previously printed. Then it's like, oh, if you missed one magazine or one issue, you might not catch that story. And then, okay, yeah. It's like, oh, he expanded this story out to 100,000 words.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a big surprise here, right? Coming from me, a time travel short story called Time Travelers Never Die. And I read that years ago, and it makes absolutely no sense as a short story. And then he expanded it into a novel a few years back, and it's a really, really great time travel novel. Really good read. So, yeah. Well, I want to move on to other topics, but before I do, if you're a fan of Pete Rollicks, and who isn't, this book comes out in, what did you guys say, the summer?
This summer, yeah.
Sometime in the summer.
Yeah. We'll probably have we'll probably organize a table or something at Necronomicon at the least.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Charles, how many other books are you looking to publish this year, if the Kickstarter goes how you would like it to go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything that's on the Kickstarter, we are going to publish it. It's just going to be, this is going to decide how quickly we can put them out. Right. So for this specific Kickstarter, we have 15 different publications, 3 chapbooks, 6 novelettes, 2 collections, and then 4 issues of the magazine, because it's going to quarterly. And if we meet our stretch goals, the first stretch goal is going to make that 18 releases, because we announced like the first stretch goal today, that if we hit 5K, we'll announce 3 other collections that we've been under negotiations with different authors. And if we hit that stretch goal, we're going to go ahead and announce that. because that'll just make it to where we can get that out faster and get that signed and ready to go. And then, you know, if we continue hitting these stretch goals, though, it can go up and up, because we've had a lot of people that have been messaging us about, you know, from collections to poetry collections to, you know, all this different stuff. And we've had other editors that want to edit anthologies for us and, you know, have ideas for year's best, you know, kind of titles. So if we keep hitting these stretch goals, I mean, it could be anywhere from, you know, 15 to probably around like 20, 25 publications for 2019.
Holy moly. Do you have a regular 9-to-5 job besides?
I actually have been working my own online hobby store for, I think, 6 or 7 months now is how long I've been doing it, been working from home. So I kind of do my own hours. It's mainly just, you know, selling comic books and antiques and stuff like that and flipping them. And I do a lot of drop shipping too. So it's perfect. I can read a lot.
Yeah. Well, regardless, 15 or 20 publications, that's a hell of a lot of publications. So, yeah, kudos. That takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're definitely gonna, if we can hit these stretch goals, that's, you know, as you'll see with the next stretch goal we announced, you know, we want to get on another editor, you know, to really like crack down on the submissions and stuff. So that's going to be another thing. And if we can get more than one editor, I mean, it would make things a lot easier.
Well, as I said, the Kickstarter is in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this later, it'll be in the show notes wherever you're listening to it, you know, iTunes or wherever. So, all right. Thanks, guys, for talking about this. Charles, are you going to stick around and talk with us about other things, or do you need to go?
Oh, I would love to stay on.
Okay, great.
Oh, okay, Mike. So this bit about for people who are a fan of Pete Rawlik, and who isn't, what flashed in my mind is that scene from The Life of Brian, where John Cleese, the revolutionary, is talking to Brian and says, "You know, there's not one of us who would not gladly lay down his life to free our land of the Romans." And one of the guys in the back says, "Well, one."
Yeah, well, okay, so there's as I've mentioned, in case you didn't know, the Super Bowl's today. Apparently there's a new Jordan Peele trailer for his a new trailer for Us, which is a Jordan Peele movie. And I have to say that this looks absolutely great. I cannot wait to see this. Have you guys seen the new trailer? Any of you yet?
Yeah, I saw it. I thought it looked really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, as I've said before on this show, I love doppelganger stories. But this just looks really, really good. I've got high hopes for it. I'm not sure exactly when it comes out, but I'm assuming sometime in the next few months.
Yeah, it's if I remember correctly, it's hitting theaters. I want to say either late April or early March. Or sorry, late March or early April. I got that backwards, but it's going to be around then. I can't remember the exact date, but yeah, it looks really good. I've seen like both the trailers, and it looks like it's going to be a lot more intense than Get Out, and it looks pretty horrific, honestly.
Well, it's about this family who, I'm not sure exactly, but goes on vacation and they come back and they find these people who look just like them, who are trying to take over their lives, something along those lines. And I came across an article on comingsoon.net. Here's the title: Jordan Peele reveals the Twilight episode, that inspired Us. And Mirror Image. Do you guys remember that one? From the Twilight Zone?
Vaguely.
Mirror Image tells the story of a young career woman named Miss Barnes, who suddenly encounters her doppelganger while waiting for the bus. She later becomes convinced that her look-alike is an evil entity from a parallel universe who's out to eliminate and replace her.
Was Inga Stevens?
I beg your pardon?
Was the actress who played that role Inga Stevens?
Vera Miles.
Oh, Vera Miles. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So here's a synopsis of the movie. Set in the present day along the iconic Northern California coastline, Us stars Oscar winner Lupita Nyong'o. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Excuse me. And Adelaide Wilson. A woman returning to her beachside childhood home with her husband Gabe and their 2 children for an idyllic summer getaway. Haunted by an unexplainable and unresolved trauma from her past and compounded by a string of eerie coincidences, Adelaide feels her paranoia elevate to high alert as she grows increasingly certain that something bad is about to befall her family. That's what got me in this new trailer where she starts talking about the coincidences that pile up. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, but Jordan Peele seems to have this uncanny knack for dealing with what I like to think of as identity horror.
Yeah.
And, when are you not you? And we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. The trailer reminds me of sort of a cross between like The Others and a supernatural version of The Others. And we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to seeing this film. I was really impressed with his previous work. So.
Well, I thought Get Out was a good horror movie. I guess I wasn't as impressed as most of the horror watching community, and maybe it was because of hype. I don't know. But it was a good movie. But this premise here, I'm really looking forward to. I think this has a lot of potential. So
the first time I heard the word doppelganger was in Kojak the Night Stalker in an episode called Fireball. You remember that one?
Vaguely.
That a pianist who's trying to be replaced by his doppelganger.
I don't remember that one at all. That's weird.
His doppelganger turns out to be the ghost of an arsonist who had an obsession with him in his life, and when he dies, he tries to assume his form and body.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I'll have to revisit that.
Another really good one, if you guys haven't seen it, is Enemy, that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. It's Denis Villeneuve, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the guy that did Blade Runner, the new Blade Runner. Enemy is really good.
Yeah, I saw that several years ago. I don't remember much about it, but yeah, I saw that. Speaking of Jake Gyllenhaal, how many of you watched Velvet Buzzsaw?
I watched it this afternoon after we talked earlier.
Okay. What, spoiler free, what did you think?
I think it was okay movie. It honestly, I wish it had done more.
Exactly.
It had the real potential to riff on, honestly, Night Gallery. It had this real potential to riff on Night Gallery, and it just never accomplished, I think, what it really set out to do. I understand the ending, and it's kind of entertaining, but in many ways, to me, it also it reminds me of not The West Wing. What's the one that Kevin Spacey's in or was in?
Which one?
The one on YouTube.
House of Cards.
House of Cards. I can't invest in any of the characters because I would prefer them all to be dead anyway. They're awful, terrible people.
That's true.
But see, that's one of the reasons I actually enjoyed it. I didn't go in with any expectations, except that whenever I start watching a horror movie, I expect it to be bad. So I very much liked the way they set this smarmy art culture of people who are superficially nicey, and they're really just like bottom feeding sharks. I thought that was very well done. I thought the way that they introduced the artist's paintings and how everybody was so impressed with them, I thought that was very well done. I didn't sort of mind the ending, non-ending. I enjoyed it as an atmosphere piece, I guess. But I didn't go in there with like any particular demands on the movie, except that, or am I going to be entertained for the duration of the show? And I was.
Well, I have to agree with Pete that the movie did not live up to its potential, and I think that it really had the potential to be a great weird fiction movie, and it dropped the ball. And I wouldn't watch it twice. I don't even. Somebody asked me if someone asked me should I watch it, I would probably say no, because it's just, to me, it's just not that good. It just fell flat. Don't you think, Pete?
Who was it? Fred Chappelle did something very similar with a story called The Adder, in which a copy of the Necronomicon is hidden inside a bookstore, and it corrupts all the other books that it comes in contact with. It changes their language and their meaning. And I think that's what they were trying to get at to here, that some of this stuff was not only hurting people who were exposed to it, it was influencing other artists and influencing how they created, and also corrupting the other pieces that was being housed with it. But it was really hard to bring that together, and it could have been done a little bit better. And maybe I'm just reading too much into it.
No, I agree. And let me be clear. I'm not saying, geez, I don't like the movie because they didn't explain everything. Because there are many great stories where everything is not explained, and that works perfectly. It just fell short. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just can't recommend it.
Yeah. The other thing, so it starts off at Art Basel in Miami, and then they quickly move to California. And at the end of the film, the only indication of how long this is all taken is that they're getting ready to go back to Art Basel. So it's been a whole year, but you only know that if you're familiar with the fact that Art Basel is only an annual event. So
yeah, and the other thing is, last thing I'll say on this is that I don't understand the title at all. I mean, one of the characters, it's off the tattoo of one of the characters.
Yeah.
But what does that have to do with anything else that happens in the movie?
I think I understand it. The tattoo and the name is a reference to, I think, their band that was 45 years ago, their punk band. But yeah, once again, I think it's only mentioned once or twice in the entire film, and I don't think we ever see that tattoo prior to that.
You did.
Yeah, you did.
One of the first scenes.
I was doing laundry, so I might have missed it.
I don't want to read too much into like this. Like I said, I just enjoyed the ride. But she said at one point, like halfway through the movie, when the band was falling apart, that's when she gave up being an artist.
Right. So yeah, it's a reference to the time when she was doing it as art, not as a business.
Right.
Which is essentially the kiss of death in this film. So, yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the movie, but I mean, would it also be calling forth images of like Velvet Underground and Andy Warhol and like that whole setting, if it's like this art gallery type?
It would have if they had made those references.
Okay.
But it doesn't.
Okay, so True Detective, I've only seen 2 episodes. I'm sort of letting them accumulate so I don't watch one a week. I think there are 3 more out right now. Is that correct?
Yes, they released the 5th sometime during the week, because I don't know. I think they're worried about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they're probably not airing the sixth one tonight then, if that's the case. But anyway, so I'm up to date on 1 and 2, and I am enjoying it. How are you guys feeling about this season of True Detective?
I really enjoy it. I think that it's kind of going back to that slow burn, and we had kind of talked about this a little bit, that it's it's keeping its pace and it's taking its time to unravel. I really like that it's kind of going back in that, and it's not action oriented, as we were saying. But I think by far the most interesting concept and theme thus far for me personally is just Ollie's character having the dementia, and like his narrative not being reliable, and him having to remember things and doesn't remember this, and as you'll see, like with some of the later episodes, it starts getting even crazier as far as his illness. And I just think that it's a original concept. I really like it.
Yeah. Anyone else, Rick?
Yeah, I like it. They made it more like the first season, but they expanded on some things, because like in the first season, we had 2 time periods. Now we have 3.
Right.
So they've kind of, they're not just repeating themselves, they're upping the ante a little bit.
All
right. Anybody else have a comment on True Detective?
I would just say I would agree with everything Charles was saying, but I would add on to that the relationships between the characters, they're very much like season 1, I guess, but I would argue better, more well done, is they're very realistic. So Ali and his wife, for example, you get to see them meet, and then you see them 10 years later when they don't have the best marriage. And then you see them in the present day, which I guess is 17 years later, 27 years later, something like that. After his wife is gone. And it's really interesting to see that Ali, our hero, and then to see these character flaws, and they're so well executed. So, I mean, it is kind of a slow burn of a show, but it's done in a way that you're really kind of getting a lot out of each of these scenes that are in there. So, yeah, the mystery may take a little while to move forward, but you're kind of learning more about them as detectives and what they're doing and why.
So the last question, do you think there's going to be any supernatural elements in this season?
I don't think so. Ultimately, there wasn't in the first season.
Right.
Although there were overt references to chambers. That one scene, Forests of Lang, that's just a little Easter egg to please the fan base. It seems to me like that it's all happening real world. I'm enjoying the series this time around. I despised season 2, and this one is keeping me engrossed.
I wouldn't say I'm not expecting supernatural elements, but something does happen in the 5th episode. And I don't really want to expand on it because it's a really important scene, but maybe supernatural isn't the right word, but like magical realism or something, where there's kind of a blurring of the lines.
Yeah, I kind of got like almost like a quantum physics feel about that, because I know what you're talking about. No.
Okay.
Well, I think that there's gonna be something with Dungeons and Dragons role playing to entice these children, which will have references we'll all enjoy. So I think you're going to see more Lang stuff or of that nature.
All right. So there was a tweet moment, thread, whatever you want to call it, about Batman. What would one of these shows be if I didn't bring up DC's, right? About Batman being, the possibility of Batman being played by a black actor, African-American actor. And I've actually thought about this before, and I think it's a great idea. get the best actor for the, get the best Batman actor out there. So, and there was, I don't want to go over this in detail, but one person posted, Batman is one character you would have to completely rewrite to make black, since his background depends on him being old money Rockefeller Republican type. I don't know that I agree with that. Well,
I don't think it's about the money. It's so much as the perceived status he has as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And the idea that Bruce Wayne is this untouchable elite socialite. And I don't think you can do that with a black character, because just the way America is in 2019, you could be the richest black man in the world, you're still getting pulled over in your SUV for no reason. And that would be my only...
but that doesn't mean you're not a black socialite.
I agree. I'm just saying that is the one thing I think that would change things about the character. I don't inherently dislike the idea. I think Marvel did a good job of it with Nighthawk in the Supreme Power. It was like the reimagining of the Squadron Supreme, which was Roy Thomas doing his own riff on the Justice League. And in this reimagining, they made Nighthawk they made him a black man, and part of his parents' murder was like, it was racially motivated. And I think Marvel did an absolutely amazing job with it, but it does change some aspects of his relationship with the police. And again, the idea that Bruce Wayne is this, like, no one would ever suspect him, because it's just, I mean, maybe it's something that this wouldn't in 50 years, no one would think about this, but I think of it in our society right now, and it still suffers some of the same unfortunate racism that a poor man would.
Well, and negative or positive, minorities are called minorities for a reason, because there's less of them, right? And if you have a African-American Batman and you've got, one or two African-American rich socialites in the city, it's kind of easy to point fingers at one of them, isn't it? That makes sense?
Well, Mike, this is all pretend.
Well, everything we talk about is pretend.
So, when you see, like, when Chris Rock goes out, people fawn over him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we're not saying that this is going to be Batman in 1940 America.
No, right now,
it's Batman in current America. Barack Obama has been president. Why can't you have an African-American billionaire crime fighter?
I'm one of the biggest Batman fans there is, and I personally would love it. I think it would be a nice, different take on the character. We've gone all kinds of different ways with Batman. Michael Keaton, Christian Bale. Whether you like Zack Snyder or not, Ben Affleck, I think, did a wonderful job as Batman. Maybe it's time to take it in a different direction. They want to do more solo movies. DC wants to do more solo movies and less of a, entwined universe type thing like Marvel does. And they want to do a younger Batman. Yeah, hey, pick a minority Batman. I think it'd be great.
I would still enjoy it. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just pointing out one thing it would change about the character. I think it's a...
Sure, I'm not saying it wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, but I don't see any reason you couldn't... there's nothing inherently about Batman that is tied to race in any way. No. So, sure, yeah, that'd be great. I mean, look at what a great job Marvel's done with Miles Morales as Spider-Man.
We had a de facto black version of Batman. It was called Mantis. It was a one-season TV series. We had a black billionaire. You had Alfred, to all intents and purposes.
Yeah, it was like a mid-90s. I want to say it was like a Saturday morning show. It was after the cartoons on like Fox or something, right?
It was prime time. Sam Raimi did it.
Okay.
It had the actor who ended up playing He did the voice of Martian Manhunter on Justice League Unlimited, and he ended up playing Martian Manhunter's father on Supergirl.
Well, anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of rabid fans out there, fanboys, who would think it was the most horrible idea ever, but I sure as hell don't. So
what was that? What was it? Channing Tatum or Tatum Channing, or whatever his name is. He was in this comedic detective series. They made 2 movies, and I'm just thinking of the scene where they go in and says, "That's Korean Jesus, you racist piece of shit." It's like when they get the race of the Jesus wrong. It's like, who cares? It's like you're always going to have someone ticked off for some reason.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Well, on the very first Batman show, remember Catwoman was like 3 different women, 2 of whom were black, I think, right? I mean,
one was
superheroes. You can do whatever you want.
Right. And what has been shown convincingly is that you can have a major superhero movie released and it will get big box office return if it's a good movie.
Yeah. I think the easiest thing to do with, casting an African-American actor with Batman, though, is just that you have characters in the Bat family, especially in the current run in DC. You have like the Signal and Batwing and all these different characters. And one of them is Lucius Fox's son, if I remember correctly. So, they've already said that the Joker that Jared Leto played in the DCEU is not the original Joker. They've already said that, and they're doing this origin movie with Joaquin Phoenix. So it wouldn't be too far off to just have an old Bruce Wayne like with Batman Beyond, but then just have, like Lucius Fox's son or something, and it could still be tied to the lore. I mean, that would probably be the easiest way to do it,
I'd prefer Bruce Wayne be African American, Anyway, we don't have to beat a dead horse. Pete, did you want to say something?
Well, I'm just going to, it's pretty well established several times now that one of the influences on Batman is Zorro.
Yes.
So if I were looking to do something, I would do old world California money, and do a Latino Batman. It works.
That's a good point.
It harkens back to that whole Zorro thing. So yeah, I mean, or if you want to do a Mexican Batman or Hispanic Batman, that would be great. In Florida, the Cubans who came over when Cuba fell, I mean, they brought a lot of money and they got a lot of respect. So there's all opportunities here to reinvent the mythos.
Here's why this is important right now, because DC is going to do supposedly a younger version of Batman moving forward. Tentatively, the title is called The Batman, but I think it's going to change. And so they need to pick an actor, and we don't need to just look at white actors.
Donald
Batman.
Just get it over with.
Yeah. Speaking of Batman and Superman, I just wanted to point out, we don't need to drag this on for the next 10 minutes, but wanted to point out, if you're a fan, this is a really good Batman novel. And for those who can't see what I'm holding up, it's called Batman Fear Itself by Michael Reaves, Reaves. I've read this a couple times. No surprise there. You can pick it up on Amazon for a couple bucks, I think. I don't think it's available on Kindle, but don't quote me. And there's several Batman novels, but I really like this one. This one might be the best out there. And then, this look familiar, Ben? Superman, The Last Son of Krypton. This book came out when the movie came out, but it has nothing to do with that version of Superman. And what would you call this guy? The Silver Age Superman, Ben?
Yeah, it's pure.
He's pretty powerful.
Age, Superman juggling planets and moving suns. Well, that and the second novel, Miracle Monday, which is also excellent. He kind of fights a demon. Or fights isn't the right word, because this version of Superman can't fight anybody. He's much too. I mean, in one of the opening scenes, he stops a helicopter by like whistling in some version of D minor that like shatters the engine or something crazy.
Well, all of that said, this is not a silly book. It's a really good book.
It's really amazing. A lot of Silver Age Superman fans consider that like the best version of him.
Superman, Last Son of Krypton by Elliot S. Maggin. Am I saying his name right? Maggin. Wait a minute. Did you just tell me there's a sequel to this?
It's not. I mean, it's a. So the thing was when Mario Puzo wrote the scripts for Superman 1 and 2, he wrote them as a single film. Part of his deal is they couldn't novelize them. So instead of novelizing Superman 1 and 2 to capitalize on it, they came out with that Superman book for Superman 1. And then they came out with a book called Superman Miracle Monday when Superman 2 was released.
Is it as good as this or close to? Yes,
I would argue it is.
Oh my God. I thank you for letting me know about this. I don't know how I didn't know about this.
And I don't believe it's legal, but there are Kindle versions of it. People just love that book so much. They didn't even scan it. Back in the 90s, they retyped those books by hand and published them online.
It is a really good book. It really is. And I'm so happy I discussed this on air because I didn't know that there was another one by the same author.
Ben, didn't Maggin do the novelization for Kingdom Come?
That's what I was just going to bring up. He also novelized Kingdom Come, which is a great comic book novelization.
Yes, and they took from that novelization, they did Graphic Audio did the audio drama. So, Idris Elba is gonna do a movie. It's like, I don't know if they've even got a title for it yet, but it's like a horror take on the Abyss. Have you guys heard anything about this? Well, I guess that's all we can say about it then, but I mean, that would be great, you know? So,
that was The Abyss. That was which one was that?
Ed Harris, Underwater with James Cameron.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, that was the summer of like 4 underwater films, and
that was the other name for it was The Abysmal.
I thought it was pretty good. Of course, I was 18 at the time.
You know, there's a short story called In the Abyss by H.G. Wells, which is sort of a Lovecraftian treatment of this scene, where there is a predatory underwater race inside an underwater abyss.
And who wrote the Maricot Deep? Was that
Doyle?
Doyle, okay.
But that had more of that was sort of closer to Skullface with Robert E. Howard. It had some immortal satanic wizard living in Atlantis.
Well, my son says that watching Supernatural is for teenage girls. I love that kid, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree. I mean, it is for teenage girls, but it's also for other people.
Adult girls.
Adult men. I don't know if I'd classify us as adults, but we're older males. Let's put it that way.
I can say that the president of CW, when he described the show, it was his, at the time when Supernatural was created, the entire network was just female-based teen dramas, right? It was Gilmore Girls and One Tree Hill and whatever else. It is technically aimed at teen men, technically. That's why there's all the gore and the violence. They just hired the 2 prettiest actors they possibly could to fill the lead roles. And that makes it a female-directed teen, you know. But it is technically, it's like a men's adventure type show.
Yeah, I guess. It's what drew me to it is, you know, these 2 brothers are traveling the back roads of America, killing supernatural bad guys, basically. You know, I really like that concept. And anyway, so speaking of Supernatural, and I'll try not to talk about this for too long for the non-Supernatural fans out there. But Pete, was it you and I, or maybe it was Rick? I don't know. I know Kelly and I discussed this, but in Supernatural, Chuck is God. So everybody, I think, knows that by now. And I think it was Kelly. I asked Kelly. They did a parallel world thing last season. And this season, they're dealing with a maniacal archangel from that parallel world, parallel Earth. And I said to Kelly, I said, it would be really neat if there's a different Chuck for each universe. And I said, I think that would be the most interesting thing if that was the case. But what they came up with, I don't know if it was the last episode or the episode before, what they came up with is, I have to say, something better. They've temporarily captured the Archangel, and he's trying to sow the seeds of fear and everything. So he tells these guys, tells the supernatural guys, we did the angel war in our world, and we thought God would appear, Chuck would appear, and he didn't. And, you know, you guys averted it in this world. You've met Chuck. He's moved on now again. He goes, here's the thing about God, about Chuck. He's a writer. And writers do drafts. And that's what Chuck is doing with all these parallel worlds. He's creating one parallel universe, not happy with it, moves on, creates another one. Not happy with it, moves on, creates another one. And I thought, that's pretty cool. You know, may not be the case because this Archangel's a jerk, but still kind of a cool concept. So anyway, now that I've bored everybody's tears.
No, I mean, I'll be honest. Every time I think the show is like they've run out of things. I mean, season 5 was originally going to be the end, and here we are. We're going to have a season 10 years after what was supposed to be the end of the show, right? That show is the 300th episode. Yeah, it's crazy to me, and I think every time I think, oh, they're done, they can't think of anything else, then they come up with 2 or 3 great seasons. Like, was it 7? What was was it 7, 8, 9? The ones with Metatron and when they brought Chuck back, those were amazing. Those were probably the best of the show. Yeah. So I don't want to. I don't know. I mean, I'll just stay optimistic because they haven't let me down so far.
Yeah. No, I agree. The only complaint I have is that Crowley's not around anymore. That's really the only complaint I have.
And I think he's the one character where they reached a like, what do we do with this guy anymore? Like and I think the actor was ready to just move on. The fact that the 2 leads in the show, I mean, really, it's the 3 leads now with Castiel.
Yeah.
Since season 3, they don't want to move on, and I think that's very, very unique. I can't think of another show in the modern times that has gone on like this, where the leads say they'll stay as long as the show's renewed.
Rick.
Last year they had a Lovecraftian episode. Have they had any more like that?
No, not that I remember. I just got to say that the explanation that Michael, the evil Michael, the Archangel from the other dimension, came up with, you know, and he pointed out that Chuck's a writer, which has been established. He likes to pretend he's a human and write books sometimes. And he said that's what he's doing with all these parallel universes. It's first draft, second draft, third draft, and so on and so forth. And so anyway, the other thing to mention is if you can't watch these live on TV because you don't have cable, which I don't, that's one of the few shows which I'll pay to watch on Amazon when they come out. Well, after the Christmas break, no shows came out. I thought, okay, there's a big delay. Finally, I looked up when the next episode was, and there had been 3 already. So I don't know if the CW has decided that Amazon can't have their episodes anymore because they want people to go to the CW app and watch it.
That's exactly what it is. They've done it with all of their shows. So Supergirl, Arrow, etc.
Well, they must have just done it during the Christmas break.
Yeah. It was literally January 1st. A ton of, in particular, almost all of the DC related stuff has disappeared off Amazon. So all the Superman movies, all the Batman movies. Part of that I think is related to the CW app, and part of it I think is related to the DC Universe app. Well, and in this case, Supernatural, it's the CW. They want you you know, CBS and who owns CW now? Is it CBS or it is CBS, right?
I don't know, but I downloaded the CW app for my Roku because I don't have a smart TV. First of all, it's free. So I didn't pay $6. I got to watch 3 episodes of Supernatural yesterday. Didn't have to pay $6 for it. And I will say this, it's not like watching TV. I hate commercials. The commercials that you have to watch on the CW are very short when you watch them in the CW app. So whatever, I don't mind it. So, but anyway, if you're looking for CW shows and you're not finding them on Amazon, that is the reason why. So, just makes me wonder, and I know Pete's probably thinking this, what about, you know, all those seasons of Supernatural that I bought in the past? Did they disappear from my library? If so,
No,
I'm going to pay money.
Those are still there. My only disappointment is that one of the things I liked about using Amazon for this is I could buy seasons and then it was all together. And now it's like, great, I can watch 1 through 13 in one place, and then I've got to go somewhere else for 14. It's I get picky about that stuff. It really annoys me.
And who knows how long they'll keep those episodes on the CW app. You know, when the entire season is over, are they going to put it on Amazon then? I know that practically when the season is over, they put it on Netflix. I don't know if that'll continue.
I'm not sure. Like one show that hit me with was Krypton. I was literally halfway through the season of Krypton that came out last year, and all of a sudden it disappeared. And only the first 5 episodes were available in a couple places, and that's because it's coming out on DC Universe like later this month, I think. And it's really annoying when you're trying to follow something and then you've got to chase between 6 different apps to try to figure out where you can watch it or if you can at all.
I totally agree. Yeah. Matt, are you going to do a movie night every Saturday night now?
I'm going to see how it goes. You know, that's a big commitment.
I do. And I wanted to say that I appreciate you doing this for the Lovecraft eZine followers and whoever else is interested, because I just can't do it right now.
You know, it's like, to be honest, I don't really like going out on the weekends. If we go out on the weekends, it's like, let's have dinner at 6 so we can get home before we see people. And, and then we like to chill after 9 o'clock. I don't get to watch horror movies with Isabel. She really doesn't like creepy shows. And so sometimes everyone around here will mention a movie or something, and I'll say, well, I'll put it on a list. Maybe I'll get to see it sooner or later. This just gives me an opportunity, and it's a lot of fun with the commenting going on the side. So for anybody who wants to participate, you just have to find me on Rabbit. And
are you doing it at the same time that I did it, 9 Central, I think it was? Or
yes, because that works out because
9 Central, 10 Eastern, right?
Right. It's very hard to find a good time. If I wait too late, people on Eastern time it's going to be midnight. And if
I thought that was a good middle of the road time. So 9 Eastern, or excuse me, 9 Central, 10 Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific on Saturdays, and go to Rabbit, RABB.IT, and add Matt as a friend. And what's your Rabbit ID?
Oh, I'll have to look it up. It's something like Matt Carpenter 558 or something like that. I've got a poll up right now, voting for the title for this coming week, either Cold Skin or Bone Tomahawk. So if you want to have a say in what movie we watch, just vote in the poll.
Okay, I just looked up your ID. It's Matthew Carpenter 558. So send Matt a friend request on Rabbit, and stay tuned on Saturday nights at 10 Eastern, and you can watch movies. I was doing this for a while, you know, and I just couldn't. I took a break from it. I really appreciate you picking it up, Matt. So.
Well, I didn't want to step on toes.
No, you're not. I appreciate the help.
Hey, Mike, has anybody else watched Project Blue Book?
Sounds familiar.
I mean, there was a look when I was a kid in the 70s. There was a show, Project Blue Book, and they've revamped it, and it's on I think History Channel, and I think it's 4 episodes in now. My daughter and I, she was homesick one day, and we watched all 3 episodes. It's like early X-Files, but all UFO oriented, and they're bringing in what they call the Men in Hats, which is the early version of the Men in Black.
It's fiction.
It's fiction. It's fictionalized cases that the project actually looked at.
Do they follow with Men Without Hats?
No. Yes, I know the safety dance, but there's also they're bringing in number stations, and it's kind of creepy.
Oh, I love number stations.
And it's I've really enjoyed it, and my 10-year-old daughter's hooked on it. 10. She's gonna be 11 next weekend. So old.
Yes, you are. Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll look that up. Where did you say it was airing on?
It's on History Channel, but I think it's you got cable. It's instant, but
yeah, I'll look for it.
You look for it.
Yeah. All right. So, did anybody besides me get a chance to watch The Body on Hulu? It's part of a movie series, not a TV series, called In the Dark.
I watched it. Maybe I finished it right as this show was starting. So
okay,
yeah.
So it's a dark kind of horror comedy, which I don't usually like, but I really liked this movie. And then there's an assassin in the movie. He's the protagonist. And at one point he makes a speech, and tell me if this rings a bell. You see, there was a point during human evolution where some neuron pathway misfired and we all became self-aware. That is to say, we became insane. We are balls of flesh and bone on a rock of ice spinning through a dark random universe designed only to survive. But then something happened in our DNA where we went, hey, wait, what if I matter? What if it's all about me? So, ring a bell? Any bells? Conspiracy against the human race. So,
okay. Whenever this subject comes up, I always think about the novel by Peter Watts called Blind Sight, about when vampires are real and they're like a super intelligent predator, but they work with humans, and so they have several different AIs on board the ship. The one with the ship, there's this transhuman intelligence, the vampire, they're humans, and they encounter a new species which is intelligent, but I don't even know how to phrase this, not self-aware.
mm-hmm.
Much more intelligent than humanity, but without the same level of consciousness, I guess. And it's just a really sort of fascinating exploration of the topic. So
I'm going to have to read that. What is that title again?
I'll put it on the board, but it's Blind Sight by Peter Watts.
And it's a sequel to Starfish, isn't it?
No, it's not really related.
Okay.
It's not in that same trilogy. In fact, we could talk about Starfish because that is a great apocalyptic novel, and I wouldn't go with any of the sequels. But that first one was just bloody brilliant.
All right. Well, I really want to read that, so thanks for that. But please do put it on the message board. For anybody that doesn't know what we mean when we talk about the message board, we've got a group on Facebook. Just search for Lovecraft eZine message board and ask to join, and I'll add you when I can, usually a day or two later. He continues, does a crazy person know they're crazy? Yes, it's called a conscience. Jiminy Cricket, that's just the part of our brains screaming at the psychic terror caused by the gulf between what we are and what we pretend to be. You think the world needs your doodles, artist? There's no art in the natural world. So, anyway. This guy's obviously read Conspiracy Against the Human Race. So, before he became an assassin. Or to justify being an assassin, I don't know. All right. Anything else, guys?
Did you guys hear about Nick Cage and Color Out of Space?
I heard.
Super
Yeah.
excited.
I'm not
Yeah.
super excited at all.
Not holding
I'm
my
just excited anybody's making the color out of space. I don't care who it is, but I want to at
I
least
think
give it a
he's-
try.
It's already been done.
Oh, when?
I think
Where?
he's
What?
perfect
How?
for it.
The movie
D.
Dear
Farbe.
Dad,
Have you seen D. Farbe, Heather?
No.
it's a German movie. It's The Color. It's really very well made.
Really,
and
really good.
the
Well,
way
shoot,
they
I'd love to
tell
see that.
the
Yeah, I mean,
problem
it's one of my favorite Lovecraft stories.
is it's black and white.
Hmm.
D.
And-
Farbe is D-I-E, second word F-A-R-B-E. Sorry, Matt, go on.
It's the way they solve this is it's shot in black and white, which really adds to the feel, but then the color is colored.
Neat.
So it's
Yeah.
a really clever way to be. Now the thing about this movie with Nicolas Cage is I don't know how to describe it. It's like everything. He doesn't mind whatever he's in. He could be a piece of shit. He wants to be in it. There's a really funny bit from College Humor. I posted this video on the webpage, the eZine webpage, about Nicolas Cage's agent. And Nicolas Cage says, "I like being in movies, man. You gotta have standards." Guess not.
What I heard, and don't sue me, Nick Cage, because this is just what I heard, but that he's in debt, so he needs to keep making these movies. I don't have a problem really with Nick Cage being in this, and I have nothing personal against Richard Stanley. But when Richard Stanley was talking about the director, when Richard Stanley was talking about making this several years ago, he said that what The Color Out of Space needed was more latex monsters. So since then, I'm horrified at the fact that he's making
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, I understand the shade now. I got you. That's not cool.
we had an early film version of The Color of Space called The Curse.
Right, with Will Wheaton.
Yeah, and Claude Atkins was sort of turned into a latex monster.
Hmm.
And even before that, we had Die Monster.
Die Monster Die.
Die Monster Die was Boris Karloff.
I think you'd be hard pressed. I know I'm probably saying this wrong, but you'd be hard pressed to beat Die Farbe.
Yeah, that worked very well.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest fear that I had as soon as I saw it announced, I mean, I'm glad that like it's getting an adaptation and that this will likely, you know, bring more people into the circle, so to speak. But it's just, he hasn't really, you know, Nick Cage is talented, but he hasn't really had like a role that I could take seriously, man, in like 20 years. And it's just, if it turns into another, you know, just wacko job, crazy antics, you know, I just don't know how I feel about it. I've been joking with all of my friends about it, you know, reenacting scenes from The Wicker Man, but placing Color Out of Space references, you know, like, how did it land? How did it land? How did it land?
Well, I haven't seen it, but what I heard from Kelly Young and from other people was that he was great in Mandy. Have any of you?
Yeah. But you know, the thing is that role kind of seemed like it was meant for him. It is a crazy nutso role, you know, but I do feel, I don't know, Color Out of Space was the first Lovecraft story I ever read. And, you know, just thinking about the story itself, I think that when Nick Cage has, you know, a role and they can kind of tell him, all right, just do your thing, you know, that he fits. But I feel like, you know, to make like a really good adaptation of this, I just don't know if letting Nick Cage do his thing is going to do it justice, you know?
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see. You know, I was going to talk about this, but I'm just going to barely touch on it and then maybe talk about it next time. You guys probably heard about this young adult author who got shamed on Twitter. A Twitter mob went after her, and she decided not to publish her book. And from everything I can tell, and I've been reading about this, there's absolutely no cause for this. She didn't seem like she did anything wrong. And here's what it comes down to. Someone actually posted on Twitter before this, just in our circle, not this Lovecraft eZine circle, but the weird fiction community. On Twitter, they posted, and I don't have it in front of me, but he said something like, I was reading a book published by a small press publisher, and there's, you know, numerous grammar errors in the book. So my question is, he said, should I email the publisher and author and editor, whoever, privately, or should I name and shame them on Twitter? And that is an actual quote there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, are you serious? This is what it's come to? You even have to ask this question? Yeah, if you have a problem, contact the person privately. You know, maybe if they tell you to go to hell, you could say something about it publicly, but approach the person privately. And like I said, I really don't want to get into this, at least in this episode, because we're running out of time, into this young adult thing. But looks like the person who really led this Twitter mob posted about it on Twitter, when she could have just as easily, wrong or right, her problem with the book, she could have easily have emailed the author, emailed the publisher, and said, hey, thanks for the advanced review copy. Here's my problems with the book. Apparently she didn't do that. She posted on Twitter and possibly, if not probably, ruined the young woman's career. You know, and I really can't see that this young woman did anything wrong at all. So,
Mike, I think the real problem is you're an adult, right? You've had prominent people in the community that you are involved in attack you publicly, and instead of taking your response public, you treated it like an adult. You let it blow by, and I think the issue is here. Anyone can create a Twitter account, and when you get one jerk out there that says something, you can have 400 people just jump on that and run with it. I've seen this. I moderate for chess.com a lot of the shows they do. And unfortunately, chess has a big problem with female representation. It's a cultural thing. There's a million issues. There's no reason to go into it. But they make an effort to put female strong chess players as commentary on their shows. And then Twitch puts them on the front page because Twitch really likes chess and wants to feature it. And unfortunately, when you do that, you get 20,000 people in there, 27,000 at one point. And I don't know, 30 or 40 of them are just horrible people that want to ruin the show for everybody. And I think the same thing happens with Twitter, is when one of those 30 or 40 people makes a comment, you get enough 13 or 14-year-olds that don't really know better, and they all latch onto it. And then, I mean, this is a really unfortunate case. I know it's really bad when Larry Correia is the person that's defending you, right? Like that's if I was an author, I would be like, oh wow, this is what it's come to. I don't know what happened here. And that's, in this situation, I think it makes everyone look bad. It's unfortunate, and I hope that I would love it if things like Twitter were not what they are, but we've gotten to the point where even world leaders use Twitter just to demonize and attack people with no basis in what they're saying. So I don't expect 13-year-olds to think any better about it.
We have a witch. Can we burn her? I mean, do you remember Gabby Douglas? This woman was the best in the world, won the 2012 Olympic gold medal in women's gymnastics, I think. You know, the best in the world. And then she was on the team in 2016, and she got a couple medals. I don't think she got a team gold, you know, but I don't know that she won any individual events. And you know how difficult it is for women gymnastics when women start to age and their strength to weight ratio changes. But she still did marvelously. And she made a Twitter comment, and she got attacked by a mob of Twitter people, and she was forced to post an apology. And I was thinking, my apology would have been, I would have been giving you all the finger. And it's like,
Yeah.
how many of you have been an Olympic gold medalist in one of the most difficult competitions around? Her accomplishments speak for themselves. And I think the big problem is when these people have a forum, but then people respond to it. It's like, instead of, it must be difficult, but
well, the bad thing is that it's not just young people. It's not just immature adults, or let me take that back. It's immature adults, whoever it is. But one of the people leading this mob was another young adult author by the name of Ellen O.H. And if I can't even pronounce the other young lady's name that wrote this book called Blood Air. But I feel bad for her. You know, she probably the first time she's been mobbed, and you know, it's hard to know what to do. She wanted to take the high road. She returned the book. She returned, I assume, her $500,000 advance because of a Twitter mob. And so here's the kicker. This Ellen O tweets, one of her tweets is, "Dear POC writers, people of color, you are not immune to charges of racism just because you are POC. Racism is systematic, especially anti-blackness, and colorblindness is extremely tone deaf. Learn from this and do better." Now, again, bear in mind, I've read and read and read about this, and I don't think the lady who wrote Blood Air did one damn thing wrong. But so then the Twitter community jumps all over Ellen O for, get this, using the words tone deaf. And then she apologizes. She writes, "I would like to apologize for using tone deaf in quotes in this tweet. It is an ableist term that I should have known but did not, and I am sorry for using it. I know that I still have much to learn. I thank all of you who take the time to educate me," aka pile on me in a Twitter mob. Am I missing something? What's wrong with the term
She used the
tone
word
deaf?
colorblind, and there's colorblind people out there, Mike.
Yeah, my son,
and they're hurt.
My son is colorblind.
I know. Yeah, it's just like, where do you stop? Where does it? It doesn't end.
I mean, somebody educate me. What's wrong with tone deaf? Am I really missing something here?
Nothing's wrong with tone deaf.
This is, I mean, my point is,
the problem is getting a Twitter account to begin with.
Yeah, I'm thinking of dropping mine. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, it's not just Twitter; it's Facebook too. You know,
but I dropped my Twitter account several months ago. It's.
But the thing is, how far have we sunk when you can't even use the words tone deaf? I mean, I used to be a pretty good musician. I had a really, really great singing voice. And honestly, back then, if something like America's Got Talent had existed, I probably would have gone on. Now, I'm not saying I would have made #1 or anything, but I think I would have done well. Well, since I got sick and I'm half deaf, I'm more and more tone deaf. I can't sing very well anymore. And I really don't mind referring to myself as tone deaf. You know, I just don't get it.
There's no problem with it unless you accidentally use it to a deaf person. Yeah. So it's just like, it reminds me of there's a comment that if you stick your arm out, you may get it chopped off. And Tim Russert once on Beat the Press said it inadvertently to a senator who had lost an arm in Vietnam. And then he just apologized immediately because he realized he was not recognizing who he was talking to.
Right, and sure, and we all make mistakes like that. And in this day and age, you can't just say, "Oh, I'll turn around and say I was wrong. I didn't mean that." You get mobbed. So, and yeah, you're right. And I've been mobbed, and it's not fun. only imagine what this young lady is going through right now. She did nothing wrong, you know. Look at what she's going through. So it's pretty sad, and it's not limited to the young adult Twitter community by any means. So
it reminds me of locusts, because like people who create things or make things or accomplish things are being attacked by people who are primarily consumers or people who enjoy destroying things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it makes me think of, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
If I can comment, Rick, I believe you're talking about Senator Inouye of Hawaii. He lost an arm in World War II. And he told a story once.
I was talking about, no, it's a guy who ran for president who is of Caucasian descent.
Okay.
Who was a former governor. So it wasn't Senator Inouye.
Well, my point about him was he was in a bed convalescing after his wound. And this is World War II, mind you. So the nurse comes up, he says, "Hey, can you give me a cigarette?" And she gave him a pack of cigarettes and a lighter and said, "Get it yourself." And this was the first time he had to, with his other hand, get out the cigarette, put it in his mouth, then get the lighter, and this is not his dominant hand, and then light it. And he looked at her and he said, "You're cruel." And she said, "The world is cruel. And this is something you're going to have to be able to do for yourself."
Yeah, if you want to smoke and ruin your lungs, you need to learn how to do it yourself.
Well, the point is, it's like he didn't take any offense after that.
No, I know. I'm just kidding.
He was an amazing guy.
Well, yeah, I think it's sad, and that's all I got to say about it. I guess it's sad commentary on readers, you know, and
Yeah.
writers.
I think a big thing is just that, and what I think is kind of sad about it, because, you know, I see it a lot on social media between, you know, a bunch of different communities, like the comic book community, the, you know, fiction community. And I think what the problem is kind of stemming from is just that the people that have the mob mentalities are given platforms, you know, it's because that's not exactly something that they can just kind of take, you know. And I think that the problem is that just so many people are paying attention to this kind of thing, you know, and it is ruining careers. It is, you know, ruining lives, and it's kind of scary sometimes to think about, you know.
Yeah. Well, Charles, thanks for being on the show. Ben had to leave just now. Thanks, Ben, for being on the show, and thanks to all of you for being here today. And
it's not even halftime.
Yeah, and thanks to the Patreons. I really appreciate you guys keeping me going every month. If you're interested in being a Patreon and getting extra podcasts, just Google Lovecraft eZine Patreon. It should bring you right to it. It's going to sound a little sentimental and touchy-feely, but I appreciate the letters that the listeners send and viewers send, and I view all of you as friends. We're just kind of sitting around this virtual campfire talking about these things, and, you know, reaching people that we've never met, we may never meet, but we share common interests and likes and things we like to talk about. So anyway, thanks for listening. We will see you next week.